Zayin Gimel. They stated yet another principle. Whatever is fit to store, and when people store such as a quantity, and one carried it out on Shabbos, he is liable for a sin offering. But whatever is unfit to store, or people do not store it in such a quantity, and one carried it out on the Shabbos, the only one liable is the one who stores it. One who takes out straw is liable if he takes out as much as a cow's mouthful, bean straw as much as a camel's mouthful, straw of ears of grain as much as a lamb's mouthful, grass and as much as a kid's mouthful, leaves of garlic or onion. If they are fresh, the equivalent of a dried fig. If they're dry, as much as a kid's mouthful. And they cannot be combined with one another because they are not alike in their prescribed measures. One who takes out foodstuffs the equivalent of a dried fig is liable, and they can be combined with each other because they are alike in their prescribed measures, excluding their shells, their pits, their stems, their coarse bran, and their fine bran. Rabbi Yehuda says excluding the shells of lentils which are cooked with them. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next, and the first Mishnah of Aleph.
Right. It'd be eight Ches Aleph.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
That's you. It's you to read Motzi Ayin.
It's me now?
Yeah. Carry on with just one more.
I thought I did all. Oh, okay.
The two.
One
Yeah.
who takes out the wine is liable if he takes out enough in mixing a cup. Milk enough for a swallow, honey enough to apply a sore, oil enough to anoint on a small limb, water enough to rub on an eye plaster. For all other liquids, one is liable for a quarter log, and for all wastewater for a quarter log. Reb Shimon says for all of them, one is liable for a quarter log, and they did not state all these measurements, except for those who store them. Okay, sorry.
All right, no worries. Let's go. Carrying on the same thing, basically, how much do you have to carry in the Rosh Hashanah to be liable, which we translate in our heads to be how much of a certain quantity is considered useful.
Right.
Okay. So chevel, rope. If you take out a little piece of rope, kedei la'asos ozin lakupa, enough to make a handle for a basket. Okay, gemi. That's reed grass. Kedei lasos telai lenafa v'lekvara. Something that enough that you could tie it to a kitchen implement and make a loop to hang it by.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kedei litol mimena midas min al lekatan. He says you don't know it's smaller than that because there's another more useful thing that you can do with it, and that is to measure the size of a child's shoe. Okay. Niar, paper. Kedei lichtov alav keshe mochsin. Keshe mochsin is the tax collector's stamp to prove that something has been paid for or something like that. It's basically a receipt. So it's a small piece of paper that's it's big enough to write some stuff on it. Okay, hamotzi keshe mochsin, and somebody who carries out such a thing, a keshe mochsin, is chayav, even if it's not made of paper, is what the Mishna is saying. Because I mean, obviously, if you're taking out that amount of paper, then we just said in the previous statement that you'd be chayav. But parchment, which has a larger shear, so if they decided to make the keshe mochsin out of parchment, you would still be chayav on that. Okay. Near machuk, what happens if you've got some paper that is not that has been crumpled and reused and erased and whatever, and it's no longer fit for writing on, so you can't use it for a keshe mochsin anymore. So kedei lichroch al pitzlochis katana shel palyaton, enough to make to wrap around the mouth of a little bottle that you could use to protect it, and so it's no longer fit for writing, but it is fit for using as a cover of a bottle. Okay, so these are small shirim. Or leather. Kedei lasos kameya. How much leather is significant? It's got to be big enough to make an amulet. Now we don't even think in terms of amulets these days.
Right.
But apparently it was a big thing then. Klaf, how much parchment? Kedei lichtov alav parsha katana shebetfilin. Enough parchment that you could write the smallest parsha that's in the tefillin, which is Shema Yisrael. Okay, dior, and how much ink? Kedei lichtov shtei osios. Enough ink that you could write 2 letters with, and I think that comes from the fact that we also consider 2 osios the minimum shear for being over on writing on Shabbos. So that's the significant amount of writing that you can have. Kachol, that is eyeshadow. Kadei lichkol ayin achas, enough for just one eye. Now, why just one eye instead of just two eyes? Karachi suggests that well, the Gemara explains that what happened is that the very tsanua women would go out in the street with half of their face covered, just enough so that they could see their way around. So it seems, I mean, you think about it nowadays and think, that sounds a bit like the Arabs.
Yeah.
But they're not even snow enough because they uncovered two eyes.
Right.
Yeah,
Sometimes they cover everything because the whole thing is,
yeah.
the mouth.
At any rate, yeah, we shouldn't be throwing stones about that one if this is what the Gemara is saying.
Right.
Anyway, Devik, glue. Kadei litain barosh hashavshevet, enough to put on top of a branch. And what is that for? That's basically a glue trap for birds.
Right.
There was actually a book out, Roald Dahl, I'm sure.
Yeah, right, right.
Right. So he wrote a book called The Twits. Did you ever read that one?
No, never heard of it.
Was this very nasty couple. They were this horrible pair of unsanitary people who were mean and nasty, and they used to catch birds by spreading glue on branches of the tree to catch them. And well, that comes from the Mishna.
I forgot what else that Dahl wrote. He wrote a couple of things. I can't, bunch of things.
A couple of things, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Chocolate Factory,
That was it, right?
most
Yeah.
famous ones, yeah. Okay, Zephyrus for Gophris. So that's it's like pitch, which is
Right,
you can use to seal up cracks in wood. Kedei lasos nekev, enough to seal to seal the hole.
right,
Okay, shava, how much wax? Kedei litain alpi nekev katan, enough also to seal up a small hole. Charasis is basically it's the dust that comes from a klicheres.
right,
Okay. Kedei lasos pi kur shel tzorfei zahav. So it's enough to, let me just see how it translates this, but yeah, kur shel tzorfei. So you put it into a furnace of the gold smelters.
hmm
Right? What would you use it for? In order to block up the mouth of the furnace that's sheham
right.
nichnas b'socha. Um, let's just get exactly the shear that we're talking about. I'm sorry, I'm being lazy over here and putting out my English again. You have to. How says, yeah, to make it's to make the mouth. So it's enough of it to make the mouth. So at the mouth of the furnace in which gold was smelted, in which a bellows was inserted, according to another interpretation, enough to stop up the opening. Okay, so right, so it's crushed up brick and sand. So it's quite a lot of karasis you'd have to take out
Yeah.
on that. Subin bran kedei ten alpi kurashel tzorfei zahav. Interesting. It's not even a food use that we look at for bran. How much you have to take out. It's enough to wait, sorry, did I miss Rabbi Yehuda? Sorry, I missed Rabbi Yehuda there.
Okay, yes, the tripod,
What is
right.
it? Right, enough to make a peg, a prop, which is a prop for the seat of the furnace. Okay, so bran is enough to put over the mouth of the furnace in order to increase the fire. Basically, bran is viewed as not breakfast cereal, but as fire,
Right.
as fuel for the fire. Okay.
This is by the way, it says that who says enough to repair a prop of a tripod because the tripod was used to support a small stove.
hmm Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Sid, that's lime. Kedei lasud
Right.
katana shebabanos, enough to paint the smallest of the girls. In other words, a little girl's finger. Um,
Uh-huh.
Okay, apparently some kind of a makeup thing. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kedei Lasos Kilkul, enough to make what's called a hair crown, um, which basically it's to they plaster it on the side of their head to keep to make the hair lie flat and fold it back. Uh,
Right.
okay, Rabbi Nechemia Omer Kedei Lasos Andipi. So he says enough to make an andipi. Okay, and you know what an andipi is, of course, right? No, okay. Um,
Oh.
it's enough lime, according to one interpretation, enough to apply lime to the forehead in order to redden it, and according to another, in order to make marks on a container in which wine or oil is measured. For all the markings of the different measures were made with lime. And the halacha follows the Tanna Kama, not Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Nechemia. Okay.
Okay. Gimel Daled. There was an incident. The people of Tiberias ran a pipe of cold water through a canal of hot springs. The Chachamim said to them, if it was done on Shabbos, it's like hot water that was heated for Shabbos. Namely, it is forbidden for both bathing and drinking. If it was done on a festival, it is like hot water that was heated on a festival. Namely, it's forbidden for bathing, but permitted for drinking. A malarium that was cleared of its coals, we may drink from it on Shabbos. And Antiki, even if it was cleared, we may not drink of it. A kettle that was removed from the fire, one may not add cold water to it to heat it up, but he may add to it or to a hot cup to make it lukewarm. A sealed pot oven or an ordinary pot which was removed from the fire while boiling, one may not add spices to them, but he may add spices into a bowl or a tureen. Rabbi Yehuda says one may add spices to anything except it's containing something containing vigor and brine. We may not place the utensil under a lamp to catch the drippings of oil, but if he places it while it is day, it is permissible. And we may not benefit from it since it is not something prepared for Shabbos use. We may move a lamp, but not an old one. May move a new lamp, but not an old one. When Mary Shimon says all lamps may be moved except the lamp burning on Shabbos. And we may place the utensil under a lamp to catch sparks, but one may not place water in it because it extinguishes them. Okay. And we
Orla.
go on. Okay. Orla. Um, Olive Glove. If a shoot of oil of a vineyard kalayim became mixed up with shoots, one may not gather it. But if he gathered it, it becomes void into 201. And provided he did not gather it with this in mind, Rav Joshi says he may even gather it with this in mind, yet it becomes void in 201. Leaves, young sprouts, the saps of vines, the vine buds are permitted in respect to oil and revi and to Nazareth, and are forbidden to an Asherah. Rabbi Yossi says vine buds are forbidden because they are fruit. Rabbi Elliot says if one curdles milk with the sap of orla, it is forbidden. Rabbi Yeshua says I heard it expressly that if one curdles with the sap of leaves or with the sap of roots is permitted, with the sap of unripe fruit it is forbidden because it counts as fruit. Defective grapes, grape kernels, grape husks, and the wine made from these, the skin of the pomegranate and its spout, nutshells, and fruit stones are forbidden on account of oil, and in Ashah it is to a Nazareth, but that are permitted in respect to revi, and fallen unripe fruit of all are forbidden. Okay. And this, yes. Um, they laid down an important principle regarding the seventh year. Whatever is designated as food for humans may not be used to make poultices for humans, or needless to say for cattle. But whatever is not designated as food for humans may be used to make poultices for humans, but not for cattle. And whatever is not designated as food for either humans or cattle, if one intended it as food for both humans and cattle, it is subject to the stringency which applies to humans and the stringency which applies to cattle. If he intended it for use as wood, then it is wood, as for instance, savory, hyssop, or thyme. Fine. Seventh year may be used for food, drink, and ugnant, to eat what is normally eaten, to use as ugnant what is normally used as ugnant. One may not use wine and vinegar as ugnant, but may use as oil as ugnant. Likewise, with truma and maisa sheni, the seventh year is less stringent in that it may be used for kindling lights. One may not sell seventh-year produce by measure, weight, or number, nor figs by number, or vegetables by weight. Beit Shammai says also not in bundles, and Beit Hillel says, I just missed something. Beit Hillel says that which is usually tied up in bundles in the home may be tied up in bundles in the market, such as leeks and milkweed. Okay.
Loharos.
Okay. Base olive. If a woman was pickling greens in a pot and she touched a leaf that was outside the pot on a dry spot, even though it has the volume of an egg, it is tummy, but all the rest is tahor. If she touched on a wet spot, if it contains the volume of an egg, everything is tummy. If it does not contain the volume of an egg, it is tummy, and everything else is tahor. And if it returns to the pot, everything is tummy. If she was tummy as a result of contact with one of contracted tumor from a corpse, and she touched either a wet spot or a dry spot, if it contains the volume of an egg, everything is tummy. If it does not contain the volume of an egg, it is tamei and everything else is tahor. If a woman who was Tevel Yom was pouring out the contents of the pot with unwashed hands, and she saw liquid on her hands and is uncertain whether she sprayed it from the pot or whether the stalk touched her hands, the greens are disqualified, but the pot is tahor. Reb Eliezer says one who eats a Rishon food becomes a Rishon, a Sheni food becomes a Sheni, and a Shlishi food becomes a Shlishi. Reb Yeshua says one who eats a Rishon food or a Sheni becomes a Sheni. If he eats Shlishi food, he becomes Sheni for sacrificial things, but not a Sheni for Truma, the Kulan that was made to the Tahara standards of Truma. The
Yeah.
Rishon of, right, that's it?
No, one more.
Oh, the Rishon of Chulan can become Tomei and contaminate with Tuma. The Sheni disqualifies but does not contaminate with Tuma, and the Shlishi may be eaten in a dish containing Truma. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And Menachem.
Okay, Aleph Gimel. If he increased its oil and reduced its oil, for he reduced its frankincense, it's invalid. If one performed kmitza on a milk offering intending to eat its remainder outside, or an olive volume on the remainder outside, or to burn its chumetz outside, or an olive volume of its chumetz outside, or to burn its frankincense outside, it's invalid. But it carries no penalty of karet. If he did so intending to eat its remainder tomorrow, or an olive volume of its remainder tomorrow, or to burn its chametz on the altar tomorrow, or an olive volume of chametz tomorrow, or to burn its frankincense on the altar tomorrow, it's pigul, and one is liable karet over it. This is the rule. Anyone who performs komitza or places the chametz in a vessel or conveys it or burns it on the altar intending to eat something which is meant to be eaten, or to burn it on the altar something which is meant to be burnt. If the intent was for outside the area, it's invalid, but carries no penalty of karet. If it was for beyond its time, it is pigul, and one is liable to karet over it, provided that the part which makes it permissible is offered as required. In what manner is the part which makes it permissible considered to have been offered as required? If he performed kamitza in silence, but placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it or burned it on the altar for beyond its time, or performed kamitza with intent beyond its time, but placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it and burnt it on the altar in silence, or performed kamitza, placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it and burnt it on the altar for beyond its time, these are the cases in which the past part which makes it permissible has been offered as required. In what manner is the part which makes it permissible not considered to have been offered as required? If he performed kamitza with intent for outside its area, though he placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it on the altar for beyond its time, or he performed kamitza for beyond its time, but he placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it outside the place, or he performed kamitza, placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it for outside its area, or the sinner's mincha offering, a jealousy mincha offering, whose kamitza he performed for designation other than its own, and placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it on the altar beyond its time, or before kamitza for beyond its time, and placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it on the altar for designation other than its own, or performed kamitza, placed the chametz in a vessel, conveyed it, and burnt it on the altar for a designation other than its own. These are the cases in which the part which makes it permissible was not offered as required. If he, right, if he, I think I skipped something. Okay. If he intended to eat an olive volume outside and an olive volume tomorrow, or an olive volume tomorrow and an olive volume outside, or half an olive volume outside and half a volume tomorrow, or half an olive volume tomorrow and half an olive volume outside, it's invalid but carries no karet. Since Rebbe said Rebbe Huda, since this is the rule, if the intent of time preceded the intent of place, it is pigul, and one who is liable to karet over it. But if the intent of the place preceded the intent of time, it's invalid, but carries no karet. However, the sages say in either case it is invalid and he carries no karet penalty. If he intended to eat half an olive volume or to burn half an olive volume on the altar, it's valid because eating and altar burning cannot be combined. Okay.
One more.
Ooh.
There were two long ones, yeah.
Yeah, right. If one performs kamitza on a mikvah offering intending to eat its remainder or to burn its chametz tomorrow, the Roshi agrees in this case that it is pickle and then one is liable to karet over it. If his intention was to burn his frankincense tomorrow, Rabbi Yossi says it is invalid, but he carries no karet penalty. But the comments say it is pickle and one is liable to karet over it. They said to him, "How is this different from an animal sacrifice?" He said to them, "Because with an animal sacrifice, the blood, meat, and sacrificial parts are one, whereas the frankincense is not from the mint offering. Okay.
Okay. Finally,
And Nagara.
the dime. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
Yeah. What is something of the pilgrims? What is something of the pilgrims from Babylon? Things like the Temple Mount, the Temple Court, as well in the middle of the highway. What is something of that city? Things like the public square, the bathhouse, the synagogue, the ark, and the books. One who assigns the shares to the president, Rabbi Yehuda says, both one who assigns to the president and one who assigns to an ordinary person. What is the difference between one who assigns to the president and one who assigns to an ordinary person? That one who assigns to the president need not give it to someone who takes possession on behalf of the president. The can say, however, that both this one and that one must give their share to someone to take possession on their behalf, and they spoke with the president only to reflect the current practice. Rabbi Yehuda says the people of Galilee need not assign since their fathers have already assigned for them. If someone is prohibited by a nether to benefit from another and he has nothing to eat, the other person may give it to him someone else as a gift, and he has permitted it. It happened that a person, Becharon, whose father was prohibited by another to benefit him, was marrying off his son. He said to another, the courtyard and banquet are given to you as a gift, but are yours only so that the father can come to eat with us at the banquet. He replied, if they are mine and they are dedicated to heaven, he said, I did not give you what was mine in order for you to dedicate it to heaven. He replied, you gave me yours only so that you and your father could eat and drink and appease each other, and the sin should be on my head. What is the matter came before the sages? They said, any gift which is not sincere, which is sanctified, is not sacred, it is not a gift.
I like that one. It was a nice stick.
Right. One who makes a net of prohibiting something prepared in a pot is forbidden only a boiled food. If he said, Kona, what goes into a pot with respect to my tasting it, he is forbidden whatever is cooked in a pot. If he prohibited the preserved food, he is forbidden only preserved vegetables, preserved food with respect to my tasting, he is forbidden all preserved food. For seethed food, he is forbidden only seethed meat. Seethed food with respect to my tasting, he is forbidden all seethed food. The roast, he is forbidden only roasted meat. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Roast with respect to any tasting is forbidden all roasted foods. Salted food is forbidden only salted fish. Salted food with respect to my tasting is forbidden all salted foods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's great.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shakara, thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
See you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you.